Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Zionsville Board of Parks and Recreation. It is July 14th, right? Let's do our roll call attendance. My name is Tim Cassidy. I'm the president. John Stair, vice president.
Here.
John Wollenberg, secretary.
Here.
Jill Pack, member.
Here.
Aaron Bidwell.
Here.
Sarah Moore.
Here.
And John Solovich told us, let us know that he would not be present this evening. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Jared Logston, our Parks Department Superintendent, Roger Burris, Parks Board Counsel, Mindy Murdoch, Director of Recreational Services, and Tricia McClellan, Principal of Runstell Ernstberger and Associates, who's also here and will be involved with a couple of our presentations. I would like to make a quick note on the agenda because this is unprecedented, the number of capital projects that we have moving forward. I've asked Jared to just kind of list them every month because there's almost always some small update, and both so we can appreciate and the public can appreciate how much is going on, and also make sure that we all have, every month that the 30-second elevator speech and the chance to check off and follow up on things that may be pressing or that may be stuck in your mind. Or so you'll see those again. And Parks Department is not just capital projects, that's for sure. So I don't want to mislead anybody, but there is such an unusual long list of parks projects that is sometimes feels like it's consuming us.
As a follow-up to that, when I have comments in my attorney report regarding those parks, would you rather I move them down?
Yes, and Jared will be doing the same with his superintendent report. So he will just highlight things that are not in the capital or in the agenda list. So feel free to do that, Roger. With you, your choice. We bow to your decision on that.
Well, there's no bowing required, but I will try to do what makes sense. How about that?
All right, let's move on. Are there any comments to the submitted minutes of our June 9th meeting? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
John Stair has moved approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sarah Moore seconds, and we'll do again, we don't have to do roll call votes as I understand it now that we are all here present and not virtual. So all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. The motion unanimously carries. Now is the time in our meeting for the public to make presentations or to ask questions. Any members of the public in our audience or who might be joining us via Zoom or remotely, please let us know of your desire to speak and we will let you do so. No one taking that opportunity. We'll move on to the staff reports. And Jared, your superintendent report, please.
Thank you, Tim. Just a couple quick updates that weren't on the report. We're excited to welcome William Wright, who will be joining the department as our newest Park Maintenance Tech 2. He will begin Tuesday, July 27th, and we're excited to have him on board. We also would like to introduce Wendy Shepard. I apologize for the mispronunciation. She will be our new part-time recreation coordinator, so we're excited to fill that position. I wanted to make one note from the golf course report as well. Last month, there was 4,101 rounds of golf played, which averages to about 137 rounds.
137 a day, you said?
137 a day.
Wow.
Even with the rain. So that's quite impressive.
Yeah, the revenues, I mean, we will have big year at the golf course.
Yeah,
So
it's a
we will
record.
definitely have a big positive year. Anything else for now?
That's all from my report.
All right, you'll defer for you've got other reports, but they will be encompassed in our other agenda items. Mindy, do you have anything to report as Director of Recreational Services?
I miss being able to hand things out to everybody.
Oh,
Take one and pass it down. All right, so yeah, we are in the middle of our busy summer month with summer camps going full speed. So just kind of a quick update. You saw the kind of the recreation programs going on there, but we had a little over 1,200 people walk through the Nature Center door in June. We ended up doing 37 programs in June as well. Those are public programs, not private. So that's more than one a day. That does include our summer camps. It also includes recreation programs like Barns and Brews. But to give you an idea, so we definitely in our department are not slow. There's not much extra we can kind of fit in right now with what we have. Just a few other things. We did able to do Zionsville Nature Play Days again this year. Last year we had to take a kind of hiatus on it. So I just wanted to do a big thank you for Zionsville Fire Department, Boone County Solid Waste Management District, the Hussey Mayfield Memorial Public Library, and the Zionsville Farmers Market and Maple Lawn Farmstead, because they all helped us in holding events during that week. So we did have some rainouts on a few things, had a little bit of a slower attendance. We think just because people, it wasn't on their radar because we had to take a break from last year, but hopefully next year we'll see the numbers jump up again. So, but we tried to do 22 programs for Nature Play Days. So some of them got canceled on us. A couple other things, our public programs were averaging about 17 attendance per each of them. So doing pretty good on that one. We also have kind of going in that route of ways to reach the community. We also now have a Zionsville Parks and Recreation YouTube page. So there are a few videos already posted, things that we've done like our cicada program, the recycling program are on there. But as we do additional kind of web-based programming, we will add those into that mix. So something new to add. You already mentioned about Wendy starting. She actually starts Friday. We're going to put her into summer camp. We'll see how she behaves on that one. We also did our Barns and Brews, which was very successful, even with the rain. I was not able to attend, but Jared was there. And the next Barns and Brews is actually tomorrow night. So, and that will be, we'll have live raptors with Take Flight Wildlife Education, and we'll have ash and elm cider. So if you're looking for something to do, you can still get your tickets. And just the Nature Center itself, we're averaging about 57 people a day through the doors. So this has kind of had an opportunity for us to have some discussions, especially with the staff. We did have kind of a switch in our staff that Rachel Felling asked to step down from her full-time role and to go back to a part-time position. We were happy that she wants to remain with it. It was just a little too much for her with her family and everything else going on. But we did promote Molly, who was our part-time naturalist, to that full-time position. And we also just posted for a new part-time naturalist position. So there'll be an additional third naturalist. We just, with the amount of programs going on, the amount of public walking through the door, we really need an extra hand to help them out. So. And then what I passed around to you guys is something very new. So we would be the second Parks and Recreation Department in the United States to offer what they call a digital playground. So it's using augmented reality to do playground in a basically an open field or an open park. So all you need to do that one is a flat open park space. At least 70 yards. This is from New Zealand, so they go by yards. I had to put out my calculator and figure out what is that in feet. So immediately I thought of Mulberry Fields. And that it's a circular pattern. So you see in the handout I gave you, it kind of shows you where the map of where it is. But within that playing space, all that people will have to do is either grab their cell phone, or I actually pulled it up on our laptop here. So you can see it. I already pulled it up for you guys. You can't play because you're not in the playground. But you would download the app called Magical Park. And then it would tell you until you get to that spot, it would actually not work. And then once you get to that spot, it opens up and there will be 6 different, right? Yes, 8 games. Actually, they added more, 8 games. Most of them have either an environmental, so like recycling or saving animals, and then some are going to be holiday ones. So since we are looking at doing this right ending towards Halloween, we'd be able to play the Halloween game as well when it came across. So, but just a fun idea that it doesn't take any staff time for us to do. It's something very simple and easy. I've already talked with Melanie with Geo AR Games on getting, so we actually have, so if you guys want to play, I can work you with how to download the app, and it is there right now for you to play. It's kind of a hush hush for everybody to check it out and see if you like it. I've played with my staff. I think people were staring at us because we were running around the field with an iPad, like jumping at stuff, but we played and we won. We caught all the eggs from the dinosaurs. So, but it's geared towards ages 6 through 12. So our thought is that's a way to kind of get into like a little bit of the older kids, some of the tweens. They already have their cell phones already stuck on them constantly. This is something new for us to do. We are looking at doing a trial, so 3 months, which would be just shy of $1,000. And then if it looks like it's something that the community really enjoys and we get good feedback, then we'll look at doing it all of 2022 and potentially having a sponsor for that one. The system itself, the company works with us as far as helping with marketing, putting together flyers. So really and truly, you know, they just want to get it out there and they want people to use it. And the nice thing is that, you know, the app, we all know how apps work. They don't have any kind of like pop-up advertisements, nothing that people have to buy. It's all for educational purposes. And actually it started because the Melanie, who I talked to, her stepdaughter, she kept wanting her to go to the park and she didn't want to. She said it was boring. She wanted to stay home and play video games. So this was her way. Another nice feature is there's a few games in there, and you'll see in that brochure that are geared towards, there's 2 games that are geared towards those with limited visibility that they can play using sound. And then also there is a slow feature to the game, an easy feature they call it, that people can hit. So if they're not able to run, if they need a little extra time because maybe of just some disabilities or impairments, there's that option as well. So again, trying to reach as many people as possible with something to do. So, but that is all I have, unless
Maybe a quick
questions.
question. Is there a way to track users or how many times? that's
Yes,
been
so
downloaded or-
signing up for this one, so we get already have access to actually everything, but we get a whole marketing packet that includes information. They talk to us on how good ways to market it, but there's also then a platform that we can go in and see. We can't individually, it's something that we could look into adding, but right now the way it works is it will log per day how many people actually log into the game. So when your device, if you're on the app and you go into the playing field, it immediately logs that you've basically logged in. And then they do where, you know, it's geared towards kids. They realize most kids probably aren't going to the park by themselves. So then they kind of extrapolate it to give you an idea of like how many people you're reaching. So I think they do 2.5 is their number. So if you had 10 people or 10 app like devices log in, figuring that some families may share the device, they multiply that. So 10 devices, 25 people is what they go with. And all you need for it is that they would need to either have like the parents have a hotspot on their phone so they could use their device, or it would actually need to have cellular service to work because it's working off of GPS. So that if they would go outside of those boundaries that we have set up, the game would actually stop working. So it's a safety feature for them.
So I see there's some room for our message about our community. Is there, in terms of branding for Zionsville or Zionsville Parks, is it, or Mulberry Fields even, Is it all over the place or it's just kind of subtle and just kind of the title or?
There's nothing in the games themselves, but when we would develop the signage that would go at Mulberry, yeah, I would work with Holly to make sure that we have our brand, and then we'd have to follow their guidelines for their app brand to it. But yeah, we can easily mesh those together. And like I said, they also said that if we want to do any kind of Facebook tagging or any of that, like tag us on there and we are happy to answer questions that people might put in there. So yeah, they definitely want to make sure that people understand that this is, it's not just a video game. It's meant to get kids out and active, and to physically do it, you do have to run. So we were running across the field. But yeah.
You mentioned sponsorships. What kind of sponsorships do you think we might be able to find for this?
I'm not sure. The one I initially thought of, because it has a lot of environmental to it with the games, is to reaching out to organizations like Duke Energy, because they've sponsored play days before. They've sponsored our teacher trunks, and see if this might be a potential. And then, like I said, yeah, then there'll be room to put their logo on that sponsorship. So they were one of a couple I thought of immediately. So, and then for the year, it'd be 3,500. So it's still pretty reasonable if you think about what it costs for capital projects. That this is something, again, it's not going to take any staff time, and it's something that would be kind of a novel thing to have in the area that we'd probably be pulling people in from other places as well.
Got the money in your budget for the quarter? Okay, go forth and experiment. Yeah. that'll be
So
great.
if no other questions. All right.
I mean, we buy a lot of databases through the library, and this is a reasonable price, and it looks like fun, so.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if anyone wants to play, I'm happy afterwards to show you how to download, and it's set up for you to actually go and play. I'm like, to check it out and see if you really think it's something cool. So, and then, yeah, once we decide to go live and pay for the feature, then they'll make the park go live for everybody. So, and then Roger, I'll send you an email of the contract just to look it over and make sure there's no questions.
All right, thank you, Mindy. Anything more, Jared, on the superintendent report? Or
That's
before
all.
we move to Roger?
Yep, sounds great.
All right, let's move to Roger. What do you have that's outside of the agenda?
Just a few things. There's a local project, a fiber internet provider by the name of Everstream that is needs the park, probably an easement from the park board to bore under the rail trail just north of Mulberry Street there by Ford Road, because they're putting their lines, and my understanding is that so it's sort of like MetroNet, only they're for business only. And I think they've been asked to provide service to the Zionsville school, to the high school. So they're trying to figure out how to get there. And so, as I understand it, they have permission to go within the town right of ways, but because of the roundabout and the rail trail, going underneath the road, that they're going to have to go kind of around and then bore under the rail trail. So I talked to their engineer today, and we'll see. We'll get some more information and then probably come back to you to approve an easement. Another thing that I've talked about before, but is coming to a head, is the transfer of the Holiday Road right of way from the county to the town. And this is west of the bridge and would include the bridge. So you remember talking about the fact that the county, because the Holiday Road Bridge was going to become pedestrian only, and that Holiday Road from the bridge east to 421 has now all been vacated and it's part of Holiday Farms. It doesn't make much sense to have a public road from the bridge west to 975, but it's critical to our pathway system that we have a pedestrian and bicycle access from that bridge west to County Road 975. And hopefully we're going to be able to link that with a pathway along Eagle Creek all the way up to Holiday Nature Preserve And if you really want to imagine how great things could be, think about the potential for a pathway running from Holiday Nature Preserve up to Carpenter Nature Preserve, which is also on Eagle Creek. So just, I mean, Tricia is just, you know, I can't believe the possibilities here in Zionsville for connection of trails and nature preserves, but it is a possibility. So, and that's something that Jared is kind of just getting into, and there's a lot of moving parts, but for now, the important thing is that the county wants to proceed with dedicating or transferring that right of way to the town. We thought that would be the best way to deal with these issues going forward, because then it's just the town, you know, we don't have the county in the middle, and they just don't really have that much interest in it anymore. It will impact our insurance coverage because we'll have to cover that bridge. As some of you know, the vast majority of the bridges in Zionsville are owned and maintained by the county. So it's kind of unusual for the town to actually own a bridge, even a historic old built bridge that's been rebuilt recently. But that's part of the deal. So we've tried to research these things, and Lance is on board with it. I'm working with the town attorney and the town council attorney to pull this together and get it done. Any questions on that? Okay. And if you remember the electronic meeting policy that we approved last month, and then you might have seen that, and I haven't had a chance to look at it yet to see what's changed, but apparently there may have been some changes in the statutes or the policies that I'll take a look at and let you know if we need to update that.
All right, very good. Thank you, Roger. Let's move on to new business and our list of capital programs and projects, so most of which have either updates or authorizations that are required, authorizations of the board that are required. But first, new business. We a lot in the news about the Wolf Run property, or we Jared and I at least call it the Carpenter Nature Preserve. And there's a master planning proposal on the table, and Jared, take it away.
Yeah, we want to run with the excitement that's in the community and begin planning what this site is going to look like. We're hearing nothing but interest and support for this project. So we want to follow the carpenter's vision for this property and explore transforming it not only into our largest park with 216 acres, but also the permanent home for our nature center. So taking that first step into the process would be master planning the site, involving stakeholders to make sure we're upholding the vision of the carpenters while meeting the needs of the community. So to begin that, we have before you a master plan proposal for a site analysis and inventory, surveying and mapping, a planning charrette and public engagement process, which would also explore the a site analysis of the structures on the property. So there is the old golf course clubhouse, 2 maintenance facilities, and multiple bridges down in the floodplain. So just kind of getting a analysis of those and identifying what our costs might be as we pursue this into future phases of acquisition and development. And then also, like I said, mentioned maintaining the vision of the carpenters and compiling a restoration plan for the property. The majority of you have had the opportunity to view the property, as well as town council and a few other stakeholders. And you can see the diversity of habitats within that land and the potential for programming year round of all the opportunities that our nature center could have, not only for Zionsville, but as a regional attraction to draw other nature enthusiasts. So with your approval and motion, we'd like to pursue the master planning of the Carpenter Nature Preserve. And that would require approval from our board and also an additional appropriation request from town council of $100,000.
So REA would be the planner. So just taking one step back for members of the board who may not have been able to go out there, or may not have read the paper. Hopefully everybody's been reading the paper, but yeah, this is, was it the previous owner ran Wolf Run from 1980 to about 3 years ago, then tried to get the property zoned for a large residential and commercial development. That was not approved. And at that point, the mayor, the carpenters got involved and saw the vision for this place as a wonderful regional nature center preserve, reclamation, restoration sort of project. They then started with us, the board. So most of us, who has not been out there? Anybody?
I haven't.
John hasn't? Okay, well, we may want to get him out there. Then the council was invited out, and they, the members were impressed, the ones that were there. Council President Garrett, of course, was there, very excited. And at that point, we decided, hey, we do need to move forward. We don't own this yet, but the carpenters are very, very vocal, very candid, very upfront. You know, they've said it in the newspaper, they've said it to us, they've said it to everybody. We're just holding this for you. I mean, you know, and we're going to give you a fantastic gift discount, and we're going to work with you. Do whatever. So that's the basis. So a little bit unusual in that we don't own it. That's the one little unusual thing. But then Trish and one of her partners has gone out since then to take a look at it. And from that, they've come up with their proposal to suss it out and do the basic look at it and public work, and to create a master plan. This also is kind of a prelude to our 5-year plan, which will have to get done next year as well. So it could be insert here in our 5-year plan. Trish, do you want to say anything we've
Can I ask a
left
question?
off here? I've got a couple questions on the structural, but
Can I-
Just to mention
Can I
that,
ask something before Tricia?
yep, go ahead.
Is there any concern, maybe the wrong word, but precedent for paying this money to a property we don't own? Or maybe that's Roger.
Yeah, I've given that some thought, and because as you know, we can't spend public money on private property. But if you think about it, what we're doing is basically a due diligence process in order to determine and confirm, that this property is going to suit our needs, and certainly, and I agree with Tim that I think we're pretty comfortable with the commitment that's been made by the carpenters, that therefore we can spend money, you can spend money investigating and making sure that we indeed do want to receive this property, even with, certainly looks like a good deal from the standpoint of part of it being a charitable donation. But again, any property, any donation has to be approved by the park board. So I think it's reasonable for you to go through some due diligence to determine that to accept this property, you would need to know more about it, make sure there's no hidden problems. And that's, I don't know if you're including an environmental assessment. Are you? Yeah, okay. So, and that would be a typical requirement of due diligence on any property. So
we can call it due diligence, not necessarily spending.
And the other thing is, we're not building something.
Yeah, I get that.
We're just investigating basically and considering what the options will be in the future if things go as planned. And the other comment is that, it's not in our budget. So, we're going to need town council's help in figuring out how we might acquire this property, whether it's, there's lots of options there, but I think it still makes sense to do the due diligence and to do what is proposed in order to make sure that we're on the right track.
It's not all that different from what we've been doing. We're building a branch location of the library, and we went out to the site, which we still don't, it's being transferred to us, but it wasn't in our possession. And we've gone out and done, we've had surveys done, and we've located utilities and done environmental studies. So all of that we had to do. And we also can't, it's all part of obtaining a property and making sure that it's going to work for you. And we have to be careful how we spend our public money as well. And so that's something that we've been doing, and it's all just a part of the process.
And this partnership of knowing we'd go into this without owning it yet was kind of captured within that letter of intent earlier this spring, when these ideas and this potential started to form. So we within that letter, although non-binding, it was kind of the promise that we would look into the planning of this site and making it a public space. So just wanted to remind that.
Thanks for the pause.
So when it comes to assessing the buildings and that assessing what sort of infrastructure needs that place is going to have, we can do that. We can pay for that without getting into a problem.
I think so.
Yeah. Know what you're buying, what you're getting. And we're also going to be talking to stakeholders. Is there demand? Is this what, as a reclamation, restoration, nature preserve is the demand that we found in our last, 5 years ago, 6 years ago when we did our 5-year plan? Is that still the same? Is the need for a permanent nature center still the same as what we think? So there'll be a little bit of that going on as part of the proposal as well.
And I think it could also enhance the opportunity for other charitable donations, restricted, or, if people in the town want to make a donation to help us acquire this land, it certainly, there are many sophisticated donors in situations like that who will want to know that we've done our due diligence, and having the sort of information that we will get through this process will certainly put their minds at ease, as well as ours and the taxpayers. So I think it's all good. It has lots of facets that hopefully will all come together.
It's a little bit different, but somewhat similar to Overly Warman. They were part of the subdivision approval was that they had to donate the property, or they were going to donate the property. When we did the master plan process, Park Board still didn't own the property. It was donated in pieces. So a little bit different, but somewhat
They
similar.
had committed, we had a written commitments that they would donate the property to us, and they would receive credit on park impact fees to a certain extent. But there are some similarities.
Just looking at our team, we do have Delve architects on the team, and then also Ecologic to help us do that assessment. Not only looking at the buildings and their condition, but also space planning, so that, like you said, you have an idea of what's possible out there. What kind of money are we looking at? What is feasible and isn't feasible. But with that Ecologic having that, the reforestation and prairies and stream bank, looking at eco creeks and stream bank restoration, we wanted them to be a big part of it, knowing that'll be the focus.
But the bunkhouse, we're going to look at that.
Bunkhouse with some bullet holes in it. Yes, we're going to look at that one too, and consider that. That really is where, Delve comes into the mix of it, looking at what program, what are we trying to accommodate out there, and then how does it fit in those various buildings that we've got out there. Jared's especially excited about the barns and the storage that you could get from those out there.
Equally as excited.
All right, thanks. Any other questions of Tricia or Jared? You've seen it was submitted to us in your package, the proposal from REA. Any further questions? Is there a motion to approve the expenditure? Again, it'd be subject to town council we're required to get a sort of a special authorization for that expenditure since it's outside of our budget. Is that the rationale there? So any motion to approve?
I move that we approve the master plan for investigating the Carpenter Nature Preserve and the expenditure of $100,000 to do it.
Okay, is there a second to John Stairs' motion?
Second.
Aaron Bidwell has seconded the motion. Any further comments or questions? If not, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the master plan design engagement with REA, subject to town council approval of the expenditure, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion unanimously carries. All right, second and last item of new business is a memorial donation.
Here we are again. As you recall, this January, we approved a new program, the Memorial Donation Program for benches and trees within our park district. The program has been much more successful than I would have anticipated. This is now our 7th bench that is being requested to be added to the department. No specific location identified, so our goal is to find the greatest need where a bench is desperately needed and add it there. So we'll be looking at that upon approval. After this 7th bench, we're going to sunset the bench portion of our memorial donation program for the year. We kind of guessed maybe we would have 5, so this is bringing us up to 7. So we just want to make sure it's a donation that both the district or the department needs and also is valuable as a donation from the memorial donor. So.
What will you do with further requests? Will you propose those for next year or just kind of take those in order, or what's the?
We're actually talking about the next evolution of this program, whether that includes someone memorializing through a donation for a program. They want to essentially a sponsor, but in memorial of a loved one, or other park features, maybe water fountains or other items to make sure we have a complete park system and not just a bunch of benches everywhere. But
Picnic tables or
Trees are, were trees a part of the program?
trees are approved. We have 2 for this year and we can continue to accept those at this time. So.
All right, no approval required, is that correct? Just wanted to let us know.
I think we were doing a case-by-case approval on the memorial program.
All right, I'll take the prerogative but make the motion to approve the 7th bench memorial donation request.
a second.
John Wallenberg seconds. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion to approve the donation unanimously carries.
Thank you.
All right, on to our capital list, and we will start with Overly Warman Park.
Overly Warman Park continues to be an evolving construction project. A lot of unknowns beneath the surface that were, could not be anticipated during the bidding and, conceptual phasing of the park. So we do have a culmination of a couple change orders that we need to talk about tonight. The largest factor in this most recent change order is the approval of our floodplain permit, which conditions changed from the time of applying for and the approval of the permit. So that required us to change some of our design, moving away from some of the gabion baskets that we had planned for the site and replacing those with wing walls, changing the length of some of our structures on site, and changing up our reforestation plan. So, Tricia, do you want to talk a little bit more about some of the changes to the site?
Do they have this list?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I can answer any questions you have on any of these specifically, but those are the main ones. The other is just the soil out there. What they find can be questionable. And the soil that we had put in the parking lot, that they had put in the parking lot, didn't pass the proof roll test. Basically, that means it's not as solid as we need it to be. So that's part of this, is getting some of that bad stuff out, reinforcing it with some extra rock before we put the asphalt down. As I'm sure you all have heard it, if you put a bad base down, you're gonna have problems with your asphalt or your concrete. So that's the second part of it. There is one credit in there. We actually shortened the boardwalk. There was an area of the pond that we weren't exactly sure where it started to drop off. We lowered the pond a little bit and found out that it's right along the edge. So we moved the boardwalk back a little bit, which let us get a little bit of a credit for less boardwalk, a little more asphalt path. So that does help offset some of that cost. It's not even, we're not close to even, but those are the main ones that are on here.
Was that boardwalk revision a savings of $52,000?
Yes.
And tell me about the change in the rules regarding the floodplain permit.
So this is not a requirement, but it was a request of DNR. And they put their foot down that they did not want to make changes. We had Gabion baskets, which were selected because of their environmental reasons. They still let us get the retainage that we need, but we just had a lot of reasons that we picked the Gabion baskets over the concrete wing walls. DNR has seen places where those fail.
Are those the metal
They're metal
wire baskets filled with rock?
filled with rock. It's what's all over Vonterra. They use the Gabion baskets for where you see the big culverts.
Mhm.
But because DNR has seen places where they fail, they have kind of established I don't even know. It's not a rule. It's not a law, but that they don't like them and they don't want to use them. So again, we needed the construction and floodplain permit. They've seen it fail. They didn't want it along Crazy Creek. So we got rid of those and put the wing walls in. Concrete wing walls are more expensive, which was one of the reasons we had chosen the Gabion baskets in addition to their environmental. But again, because they've seen the failure, we needed to do what they asked in that location for those. So.
And that's a total increase of $78,000.
That's actually been updated to $94,475.90. There was a miscalculation.
Are they the only ones that have seen these fail, or are other municipalities using? I mean, I feel like I've seen them.
We asked for some specific examples where they've seen them fail, and we didn't get those from them. But again, a lot of it depends on the Gabion basket specification, which you all know from working with us, we're very particular about what we specify. We use the same specification that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers uses. And we are out there when they're putting them in to be sure they're installed correctly. They're used on the Ohio River, which sees a whole lot worse flooding than Crazy Creek on Overly Warman. But they have somewhere throughout the state, they've seen some places where they've had failures. More than likely, they were not specified right and they were not installed right in those locations. But again, that's sort of their reasoning behind it.
And will this change have any impact on the drainage plan? I mean, this is on Crazy Creek, right? Which is just headed towards Eagle Creek,
Yeah.
right? So I assume this is kind of the direct or to slow it down or something. But what's the impact on the overall drainage plan for the area?
There really isn't. That's incorporated in this cost. It really just makes it so that, the wing walls take the place of the Gabion baskets. The concrete, wing walls just replace those. They're much shorter. They're a little more harsh in terms of, the impact that they have because they have a footing on them that the Gabion baskets don't. But overall, grades stay the same for the crossing. Underneath the crossing will be the same width as what it was before, which will actually be wider than what the rest of the creek is. It's essentially a ditch.
Assuming they don't fail, do they normally last the same amount of time, these two things?
Yeah, well, concrete will last 100 years. The Gabion baskets are, I think, 60 years when they're maintained correctly. But again, DNR doesn't like them, so we took them out. It's just costing, more money to do that.
Is there a maintenance cost associated? You said maintained correctly for the baskets. Is there a maintenance cost associated with that the concrete doesn't have?
There is. Overly Warman has a maintenance plan. So it includes everything from, you should be emptying the trash cans to inspect. We've got some green infrastructure. We've got, some wetlands that we're enhancing. And then some areas where they're, lower areas where we're holding some drainage. So there's things that Parks Department will have to observe and maintain to make sure that they're operating the way they should be, which the Gabion baskets would have had to when they were out there on site looking at the green infrastructure. We would have wanted them to look at the Gabion baskets too. And actually, we are still using Gabion baskets. They're just outside of the floodplain. So we'll be using those closer to the bridge where it comes off the Big Four. And those maintenance activities will still have to happen. It's basically making sure there's no trash so that it maintains the drainage that we want it to. It's not high maintenance, but it does require a trip out there.
The wing walls will not.
They will not. Wing walls are just straight up and down, exactly what they sound like, straight up and down concrete walls. So they don't. Stuff doesn't grow up in them, but they don't require the maintenance that Gabion baskets do.
More questions?
Is
So,
this isn't a proposed, like, this is our, do we need to approve this or?
why don't you, so we have a chart. Does everybody have the chart pulled up? There, I think to cut to the chase, it's the white, anything in green or red is irrelevant to what is being asked of us.
Yes.
Red is denied, green has already been approved. So the 4 or 5 items in white, which net to a additional expenditure of $87,000. Is that correct?
With the changes to the gaming baskets and the boardwalk credit, I had $76,037.05.
76, pardon me, what?
For the changes in the gaming baskets, the parking lot reinforcement and undercut, and the delays due to the floodplain permit, the total of those change orders would be $76,037.05.
Gotcha.
So the numbers did change within the last 24 hours, unfortunately,
So they didn't issue the permit and it cost additional money?
due to the changes we had to have in design. Yep.
So I want to make sure I understand this correctly. So the Gabion baskets approved, was it approved at the time of the plan? It's within code, but somebody at DNR just doesn't like that method.
Essentially, yeah, it's not a written law. It's not even, DNR also has, and I can't remember the correct term for it, but it's like an unwritten rule, or not unwritten, it's like a rule.
Is it
They
like
don't
a
even have
best
it written
practice?
yet. So, what'd you say?
Is it like a best practice? I mean-
Yes, it kind of is.
So they couldn't like we could go with the baskets if we wanted to.
The issuing of the permit was conditional on the revised plans.
So somebody within DNR is holding up a permit because we didn't do it as they would prefer. I guess.
We submitted in November. They've kind of, the rule for their unwritten rule
Yeah.
has evolved since November. They didn't even look at it until April. It was April, it's the end of March. And it had changed from when we had submitted, because I asked that specific question. So it's not the rules that were in force when we submitted the application, it's when you review it. And he said, yes.
But it sounds like it's not even an actual rule. I guess I'm trying to, because I've worked with, Zionsville, but I know the inspectors, they may come out and say, okay, we like a wire nut instead of a plug-in connector. Both are approved. They prefer one, but it wouldn't necessarily hold up a permit because it's within code. So now I guess I just don't understand why we're paying $100,000 extra because they like one method better than another.
Because it's the state of Indiana.
It is. And
Our mistake was not to, well, again, we didn't have the permit, but to wait for the permit, you don't know if it's 3 months or 12 months to get the permit. So we bid the project out, entered the contract. With the best knowledge that we had, and then the permit comes back to bite us. It got us.
I mean, the other comment is that, I mean, we're getting these grants, we're getting money that's administered by the DNR. So, we have to maintain a good relationship with them, even when it costs us a little more money.
You're right, Tim. If you wanted to avoid that altogether, you would need to prepare the entire construction plans, submit them to DNR. That review right now takes anywhere from, they'll tell you 3 months, but I haven't seen anything come back sooner than 6 months to a year. Get the permit and then bid it. There aren't many towns that can hold a set of construction plans for a year waiting on that permit, but then you're guaranteed not to have this issue that we did.
Yeah, I just wonder why they don't more vocally let other municipalities know.
And they said
not
they are
cost.
working on writing that rule now. So, but yeah, that was kind of our point. We would have made it that way
Sure.
had we known.
Sure.
And there were some conditions that we were able to compromise on. They had additional criteria that we were able to get an exemption from because exactly that, it was kind of a recommendation rather than a written rule. So there was a little compromise on each end, but
All right, so could you go through, please list for us the 5 or 6 items that you would like approved. The first I will help you out with since it's a credit, and that's the boardwalk revision, which will save us $52,205.84. And please then proceed with the other change orders that you would like approved.
the next is the Gabion basket to wing wall, which was $94,475.90. The parking lot undercut, which was additional work required for the subpar soils within the parking lot.
This is the parking lot extension, right?
Yes. Was $3,000. And then additional reinforcement for that parking lot was $11,766.99. And then due to our unforeseen delay in the floodplain permit, HIS was not able to maximize the use of their supervisors on site. So rather than working on multiple projects at once, within the floodplain, they had to concentrate on one activity, one site. So they're requesting $19,000 for that loss and an extension equal to the delay in the permit, which was 91 days, which would bring our, is it total completion or
Yes,
substantial completion to February?
From November 12th was the original substantial completion, and the new substantial completion date would be February 11th. Fully complete would still be the same day, April. We had April 29th for them to do some spring plantings, so that date would not change. Unless there's, other weather conditions or, those things that happen between now and then.
So rounding to the nearest thousand, the 4 additions total about 128,000. The one credit is 52,000 for a net increase in the project from the proposals tonight of $76,000.
Yes, correct.
So down under the construction cost summary, the change order total down there is what's been approved so far. And so we're talking about an additional 76,000.
Yes. So what's been approved to date, there were some changes in insurance coverage, the addition of that viewing project so we can look over the pond. Also, the large rocks we were placing towards the natural paths on the, I want to say, west side of the park that experiences seasonal flooding. So that would just help with navigating that. From memory, I think that's all of our.
Surely you have to talk about the savings of $6,000 that took 10 minutes to push a slab into a soil void.
Yes, thanks.
That
Thanks to
sounds
our,
like a winner.
thanks to our REA construction manager that was on site. Rather than break up just a ginormous boulder, we were able to lose it on the site and bury it. So saving us $6,000.
Right. So that could be like a geocache game, perhaps.
It might have its own magnetism. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions about the 4 additions and the 1 credit that are being asked to be approved tonight?
Well, if we go ahead and approve these extra expenditures, where are we on our contingency?
I'm confident within the contingency and also some of the other allocated funds from our non-reverting capital that we can cover these costs as well as the proposed cost associated with that account.
Comfortably, or are we getting ourselves close to the line?
So we pulled out the Starkey Avenue Bridge for our own 215 non-reverting capital expenditure. But as a component of the rail trail, we also placed that same expenditure kind of within the bond dollars. So there is some flexibility on where that actual billing will come from. So should Overly Warman require some of those funds outside of our contingency, we should be able to split the difference between the bond dollars and the allocated construction funds. And that allocation within the 215 non-reverting capital is liberal. So it was inflated just slightly, just in case for these kind of situations. It will be interesting, and we've kind of talked with Tricia about what the bridge cost for Starkey will be since we approved it, and then with the new steel prices that have been gone up since the pandemic set in. So that's kind of why you allocate more than you might need just to make up for those situations.
So in summary, we're getting close to utilizing all of the bond funds for Overly Warman Park. However, extra funds are available through non-reverting capital or through the Pathway Improvement Bond Fund.
Correct. Yep. For our active projects, I still feel confident within what has been allocated to date.
And I think our contingency was 10% of the project.
15.
So we're spending those dollars now. I mean, we're still way less than half of the contingency.
And you have to balance creating the best product, the best project, and also limiting your, being a good steward of those dollars. But Overly Warman does present some challenges, as it is a clean fill site that we're discovering many new things in addition to this permitting change in other scenarios. So
We certainly knew it was a clean fill site, but the point is that you're going to, you're going to uncover things that you don't expect. We knew that. And some of them have to be dealt with. Some of them are work to our advantage, some don't. Most don't, I suppose.
Okay, any further questions regarding the proposed change orders for the 4 additions and 1 credit? Is there a motion to approve the change orders as submitted? I'll go ahead and make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made, seconded by John Stair. Are there any other questions? Clear as mud. If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay for the record. I need to get 1 nay on the record.
Wallenberg.
As long as it passed.
Yeah, for the record, the motion passes 5-1. All right, next item, the South Rail Trail expansion or extension.
just a quick update on the South Rail Trail expansion. We have met on site with HIS for kind of that kickoff meeting. We have not received the construction schedule yet, but that will be imperative as we communicate out what a closure on the rail trail looks like. We want to ensure that we can minimize grievances and maximize awareness of this project coming forward. We know everyone's going to be happy with the end product, but we just got to get there. So more to come on that. The notice to proceed has been issued. So we expect that construction schedule in the coming days, within the month.
Couple questions on that. One is, I don't remember seeing, and this may be a little different because there's no structures. I mean, there's bridges and such, but the builder's risk insurance, do we have that? Are they getting that set up like we did on the Overly Warman? Right, and I didn't see it on that. No.
I'll follow up on that.
Great. And one other, well, you want to hear the good news, don't
Yes,
you?
yes, please. I was waiting.
I have the notarani deed in hand. You know,
I gingerly went around the orange stake this afternoon when I went over to check the area.
yeah, so
Wasn't sure what to do.
took a long time, but we finally got that done. So, so we now own that property. Tricia, I mean, are you going to do a little dance for us? Happy dance. I'll get that deed recorded and then Jared and I need to compare notes on, because, you know, some things are being funded in part with the Next Level Trails grant, and we have to comply with their requirements regarding restrictions, making sure that it's of record that that these properties will be forever maintained as public outdoor recreation facilities, which is certainly not a problem.
Of course, we separated from the South Extension project, the trailhead, which would be on Zionsville Road. And there are two parcels that we're in negotiations to acquire. Is there
I have
any?
a short update, which is that it still looks good. Just working through the details, you know, relocating two families is not simple, but I'm getting positive feedback from the other lawyer. So I think those are still on track.
Anything more on the South Rail Trail extension? All right, onward to the North Rail Trail extension project.
North Rail Trail, hot off the presses, is the 90% complete construction documents. So we have a couple of things to review and also send those to the DNR for their approval at this 90% phase.
Again, we have a design construction document contract with REA on that extension. So these would be the documents that they've now produced. Great.
Everything's moving well on that. And as far as land acquisition, we want to talk about that. How that's-
Well, yeah. I'm in discussions with the heirs of the cane. They're very positive, and they're the ones who've expressed in writing their intention to convey the property in a partial gift manner. So there's a lot of kids that on the title is still in the deceased parent's name. So that's one problem. Roger and Jared and I had ordered a update on the appraisal, one of the two appraisals that had been done, since it had been over a year since that appraisal had been done. So that's now been conveyed to the chief, the head of the heirs of the Canes, and she's on a 2-week vacation, so haven't heard back from her on that. And then there are two other parcels. One is fine, he's no problem. Just, you know, tell me where to sign. And the other one, I've talked to live once. She was more inquiring and positive, but yeah, I'm getting a little worried about that one. Make weekly calls, so
And
they want to talk about alternatives afterwards.
I mean, is there any alternative but to acquiring that property one way or another?
That's what we'll probably, you know, nothing is easy, and you've got grant, you'd have to provide updates for our grant to the DNR on the Next Level Trail grant. So it'd be a kink at a minimum. So. All right, let's move. Any other questions on the North Rail Trail extension? Everybody did notice that what the school corporation has named their new primary school
Yes.
that will be adjoining the North Rail Trail extension, Trailside Elementary School. So in honor of the trail. So we thank the school corporation. They're a partner, and it's their land that will permit us to get from Heritage Trail Park, or partially their land that will permit us to get from Heritage Trail Park out to 400 South. So that's great. It was great to see. All right, onward. Next, this is a relatively, we've talked about this, the rail trail widening. So it's always been talked about in terms of the pathway a vital necessary pathway improvement. And when we got bond B for pathways improvements, this was thought of as a possibility for expenditure of some of those funds. So rail trail widening project is new on our list. And why don't you update us, Jared, on what you're thinking and what we might have on this?
So kind of the goal of this project would be to identify phases and a plan moving forward to widen our existing rail trail so that at the end of this construction project, we would have a uniform trail with varying degrees of 15 foot, 12 foot, somewhere in there. Where we can have, it's going to be relatively all the same age. So preventative maintenance and upkeep would be a lot more consistent among our maintenance department. It'll be a better user experience as it narrows currently. And once the north and south extensions are finished, we will go from 15, 14, 12 feet down to 8 or 10. So creating that more uniform feel throughout Zionsville, and also being able to accommodate the future growth as we connect to Whitestown and welcome not only Zionsville residents as they continue to move into the area and we grow as a town, but also as this becomes a regional amenity and we start inviting Whitestown and Indianapolis folks and Carmel over here to experience our rail trail and all of its wonder. So this is that natural progression of the next phase of what the rail trail would look like. So first, regardless of kind of what that widening looks like, I think it's imperative that we address the drainage issue that we are experiencing north of Mulberry and Ford Road. We are experiencing seasonal washout and large deposits of silt that are entering the rail trail corridor from the neighboring field. So we have spoke with BLN to create a study of the watershed and also the design and permitting for a structure designed to handle that flow from the neighboring field, slow it down, and distribute it appropriately into the channels that exist within the rail trail to properly deal with that stormwater. So this will minimize our flooding events and hopefully resolve them in the area that regularly does close down for a day or half a day at a time when we have a large rain event in the fall. So the goal of this project would be to understand what that structure would look like and be ready to implement alongside our proposed widening. That would be a separate project. So with approval for $74,000, we'd like to conduct this study to better understand a solution to our drainage issue north of Mulberry and Ford roads.
This has been an issue, seems like every year for the past 5 or 6 years, and the previous superintendent would have to beg, steal, and bargain, usually with the Department of Public Works, and get equipment and get it cleaned off. And so it just seems like it's come up every year, but nothing ever was getting done.
So yeah, like I said, this structure would require the cooperation of the church, and we've had those conversations, and they're willing to do what they need to on their side to make this a successful project. That'll require some vegetative plantings in front of this structure to slow down some of that water. But currently they're losing their field because it's all kind of being deposited into our shoulders of our rail trail. So it really is a win-win project for both us and the Zionsville United Methodist Church.
Are they willing to share expense on the engineering?
At this time, they are not. They had a large fire suppression project they had to implement to remain open so they could have daycare services. So that expense has kind of wiped out their funds for the time being. And I feel this project, rather than continually scooping out their silt and putting it somewhere else, we should fix it rather than put a Band-Aid on it. So in the meantime, our crews are maintaining the drains better. We're having better preventative maintenance to make sure, even though the water comes on our side, we're able to deal with it as fastly as the existing infrastructure can. But this project would really create a construct to appropriately deal with that amount of water.
Questions about the proposed BLN study expenditure and contract? Or about this issue, and this would be covered by the halfway improvement bond fund.
Which thankfully to our next level trails grant, we're able to save 1.8 million out of there. So not to just start spending this, but this is a vital component of improving the rail trail, this study.
Is there a motion to?
Well, can I ask that? I mean, I appreciate the church offering support, but can we compel them to participate more in the funding of this?
I was hoping when it is the construction phase, they will have to address the plantings on their side, and there was hopes of maybe a community connection at that point. So maybe leveraging that and having that conversation at that point to ensure that there is some equal expense on both parties. It is a shared problem between both the town and the church.
Was there a meeting between you and church?
Yep,
Governance?
we did have 2 meetings. The first one, everybody was kind of aligned, and then I think their request before their financial board was less supportive, so kind of broke down a little bit. But regardless, I think we do need to address the drainage issue, and then as it comes into the construction phase, we can negotiate and have those conversations.
So there's at least recognition that we're in this together.
Yes,
Okay.
shared problem, shared solution is kind of how we entered into these conversations.
If I'm looking at the right place, I think I am. There's a lot of trees and things in between the field and the rail trail anyway. And so the plantings are gonna go to this side of it, like toward the field?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
And they won't be trees. They probably be sages and sedges and other things to slow that,
Yeah,
more the aquatic plantings.
okay.
You don't feel that if we approve the funds and to go forward, that talking again in the construction phase, that's not too late, you think, to maybe share the expense?
The engineering regardless is going to identify what that structure costs. So we don't know that cost yet. Speaking with Lance and Public Works, it seems like it will be a relatively simple design. So, but exploring what sizes are needed to accommodate that water is the unknown at this point. But
So like the plantings are going actually on the church's property?
yes,
Okay.
yep. And they are having their own conversations about what the future of that field will be. I believe they're talking about abandoning the ag practices and utilizing that space as a community space, kind of their own Rand Park or potentially a field for football. So those conversations are happening on their side. So perhaps there's some other opportunities to collaborate with this project in a larger sense.
Did you say they're thinking about a trail, a connection to the trail?
They did mention that during our conversation.
So another thing to keep in mind is that when years ago, for part of the rail trail, we had to get an easement from the church, some property that was donated to them. And as part of that easement agreement, they wanted the right to be able to potentially put in another driveway running from their property over to County Road 975 East. And so I included a provision that if they ran another driveway, it could not interrupt our rail trail. It would either have to go underneath or over it. Which, I don't think anybody would ever want to do.
Sure.
But I just bring this up because, if we're going to be having some negotiations with the church over some drainage work or, some improvements on their side of the property line, that we also recognize that there may be an opportunity to modify or just consider the previous agreement that we have with the church so that if it makes sense to change any of that, we could do that at the same time. And I can certainly provide information on that. I'll have to pull an old file, but I can certainly do that.
Further questions? Motion to take action on the submitted BLN proposal?
I would move to approve the BLN proposal of $74,000.
Jill Pack has made a motion to approve the proposal. Is there a second?
Can I ask one quick question? Or do you want a second and then ask a question?
Yeah, let's get a second and then we'll have chance for,
I'll second it.
right? Are there further questions?
So one other question. So with water, I had this experience in my backyard. Often you can't tell if the solution worked until after the water comes. So with this design, I mean, I understand the survey work with the design. Are there elements that will allow them to come back in and modify that? Would that be on our dime if in fact the design is not taking care of what we thought it needed to take care of? Or how would that be handled, I guess?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. I'd have to get some clarification. I would imagine in that scenario that it would just require an expanded vegetative buffer to continually slow down that water. So kind of what's proposed is that vegetative buffer to slow down the water and improve filtration on their side. And then surplus water will come to a levee or a wall and then fall over that. And that's at which point our drain structure channels the water to the appropriate drain.
Yeah, and that's my concern. Obviously, it needs to take care of the issue, but my only concern is that with water, you don't know if what you've done has worked until you see it not working.
Right.
I would say that when you're hiring an engineering firm to provide this sort of study and plan, that you would absolutely expect it to work.
Yeah,
And if it doesn't work, then you'd have a problem with the engineering firm.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I mean. If in fact it doesn't work, do they have a contingency?
They have liability insurance for design defects. But yeah, I mean, Tricia, am I right that as you spend this much money on designing a plan, you expect the plan to work, right?
You will have a lot of data to back up all of the different storms, historical data, different potential uses. And yeah, you'll have all of that volume of water that will be accounted for.
There should not be any surprises after you go through that process. In the normal world.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, ideally, that's the hope.
They're looking at the entire watershed. Huge look at all the water that's coming to them. Not just, not just this property.
My question is though, if the vegetation does have to in fact go on the church's property and they don't agree to the design that is presented, what recourse do we have? Because we've already paid this money to get this design. And if they say, well, we don't like that, what do we do? Because I'm assuming we'll have to have permission from them to get it built on their property. Is that not right?
Yeah, that's a great point. At this point, it's a verbal confirmation that they're willing to work on this project. But we should probably get that in writing moving forward.
Yeah, I would just be
The
worried
alternative is you've got a claim of action for, I don't know what you call it, Roger, nuisance, or, your land is trespassing on my land.
This section of the trail does have significant problems.
Oh, it absolutely does. I'm not
over and
denying
over
that.
and
I go
over
by it
again.
all the time when it's been raining, so I know
So it's
exactly what you're
really-
talking about. The problem is if we have this design and they say, we don't want you to plant that stuff, or we don't like this design, then do we have to pay for another design, or
Well-
what would be our recourse is all I'm not saying we shouldn't approve it. I'm just saying that we should maybe think through that and probably get some better documentation from them that, they're not sharing in this expense for the design. So
I
when
think if
come
they
back-
don't like the design, then you say, well, then hire your own engineer, get your own design and present it to us.
But then we will have expended this money and not get anything for it.
But-
I'm just thinking out loud.
Well,
So,
we've got to do something at some point. We can't continue to leave the condition of that portion of the rail trail that way. And, you know, you don't want to have to end up fighting it out in court with any community member, but so that hopefully we never get to that point, and maybe we can get something in writing now.
Well, I would think it'd be reasonable to put it and say, we've passed this, we're gonna spend $74,000. So yay, you, that you benefit from us doing this. So hopefully they wouldn't do that. It's just a consideration.
This is the opposite of what we talked about on spending the money on the carpenters' due diligence, right? You know, we're investigating their land. In this case, we're investigating, we're spending money to design a solution that would help our neighbor as well as ourselves. And I think it's a good point that if we're going to go through that process, it would sure be good to know that our neighbor is going to be willing to take the next step. And I think part of that would be making sure we have good communication with them along the way and let them know what our expectation is. I mean, I remember when we dealt with the easement from them, one of the members of the congregation was an attorney who I worked with and who's still practicing in Zionsville. And so I think it's a good point, and I think we should keep the church involved and make sure that they know what we're doing and what we expect. It sounds like they have some ideas about some projects that they would like to do, which is probably a longer term plan than what we're talking about. But we want to make sure that they're coordinated, and if they need something from us in the future, then we'd certainly expect them to help us with what we're doing now.
Two things, maybe we could amend it to include that the church agrees to implement the said design. But also this design doesn't include the execution or implementation of this. That's an additional expense that we can't anticipate the cost either. So maybe some sort of, they might share in that as well.
Another thought that came to my mind is that we tell engineers in coming up with this plan is that we think, you know, the church will cooperate with the solution, but maybe have a plan B, you know, as they're doing their design, ask them to have a plan B just in case, you know, the church is not able to or refuses to, so that we at least have some engineering and planning for a plan B that takes that into account.
I mean, there's obviously a dialogue going on with the church that's okay. It's not perfect. Otherwise, they'd be paying for half of this study or a portion of it, not even half. I don't know if it's, I don't, you know, to get them to put something in writing, I don't know if that would just.
Right, but at least I want them to know what we're doing.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest is that we go to them before we sign this and send it in the mail to BLN, that we do have another round of communications with them, and we have to tell Jared or give him the sense of what sort of comfort he needs to get from them before we proceed with the BLN study. I'm thinking out loud myself. So, but
well, I mean, all I was thinking was that we should definitely have some formal notification and awareness that, you know, this expenditure is going to occur. And I mean, I would think that.
Well, that's a different idea, is to let them know that we are, you know, hey, we're doing this, put you on notice.
For fail, that they would participate, either ask to participate in it or see what the results were, and then, you know, want to further the project along by, you know, doing their part in contributing. I just was thinking, you know, if it was majority of the solution had to be done on their land, obviously we would need their permission. And so it makes sense to me that you would involve them from the very beginning, and hopefully, you know, they would see that contributing in a financial way is the right thing to do. But at the very least, they would have to give us access to their property. And so it makes sense to me that we would formally notify them, that we would formally be aware of this expenditure and know that we're contributing in this manner. And so therefore, it's somewhat their responsibility to participate at the very least in the process, if not to contribute financially in the future. I mean, I personally was never aware that a study of this nature would cost $74,000. So it's probable that there's a lot of people in the church that also don't understand that it would cost that much to conduct said type of study. And so if they see that we're willing to make this financial commitment, then there might be some further conversation on their side about, you know, what their responsibility is to this situation. That's my thought process.
Will that be productive for cooperation, or will it chill the waters? I can see it going either way, but you're the closest to them, Jared. What do you think?
They did seem amicable to collaborating however they could. It just sounded like that initial investment was not on the table for this year. And rather than have our rail trail suffer for a couple of years in the future, I would rather address this now, have a plan, and then be able to implement that soon.
Do you object to sending them a letter, letting them know that we are, I mean, it sounds like they already know we're doing it. Maybe they don't know the exact numbers or.
Right. No, I think that's a great idea. And, you know, we have had conversations since that. They're amicable to us utilizing their parking lot for a winter festival. You know, they still want to be a good community partner. It just was this financial component they were not able to commit to at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good faith effort on our part that we want to fix it.
So would the maker of the motion, Jill Pack, like to amend her motion to also, you know, require that we give in letter form or some writing to the church, notifying them of the engagement we're about to enter?
Yeah, I would amend my motion that we approve the BLN
Were you the second?
proposal of $74,000, and that as part of that, the superintendent will send a written notification to the church to acknowledge what we've agreed, what we're taking on, and what we're looking to them for in the future.
I'll second that.
All right, John, that was the original seconder, so he's agreed to the change. Final questions, comments? No, let's
Wait, one more.
Sure.
Does the permitting, I'm ignorant to this, I thought permitting was at the construction phase, not at the survey phase. So we're paying for that early, is that,
Yes, that's included in this package.
so that's assuming we'll move forward with their design, we
Right.
prepay for permits?
It was a component of the proposal. So at that stage, I imagine they would create the documents, submit for approval within the permitting. And then once approved or amended based on the comments from the permitting, then we would receive our final product, the design.
Okay, so the design would be permitted, not the construction work is permitted.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, if we choose not to do their design or it gets pushed out based on our ability to pay, then those permits would be retained for the duration.
Forever long the permit is valid. They do
Okay.
have a expiration date upon
Okay.
issuance.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Not, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving the BLN proposal, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay? Okay, the motion unanimously carries. All right, also, just next was the widening scope and design proposal from REA. So that's not being proposed for approval tonight. Is there anything you and Trish would just like to, again, it's just come out, so it's a big number. It's a big project, so anything you'd like to say as just an introduction for what we should consider over the next month?
Yeah, so we just wanted to introduce you to the idea of what the widening project might look like for the rail trail, the existing infrastructure. Remember that this is our largest portion of the rail trail, which is what has been laid down before. So our northern and southern extensions are, much shorter distances than what is kind of being proposed here. So with that in mind, we kind of want to look at the widening project and kind of what the extremes are for just establishing what we have, if it's in good repair, expanding it where it makes sense, or complete replacement and addressing drainage issues. So I'll invite Trish up here to kind of talk about the process of the scoping study first and then moving forward.
So when you're looking at the proposal, oh, you haven't seen it. When you do see it, you'll see that we started with what we're calling a scoping study, which is essentially what Jared just described. Once you'll have a certain amount of money left, from your bond, after the north and the south are added into it. And the scoping study will look at how you can spend that money. So again, how much of it can you totally replace? Pull up what's there and replace it 15 feet wide or 12 feet where it needs to be more narrow. We'll then give you another option, which looks at, are there areas that need to be completely pulled up and replaced, but other areas that are okay, just to widen. But also included in that is drainage. We know there's a couple places where we need to do drainage improvements. We'll incorporate, this, however much this new drainage structure, pull that into the cost estimate too. And then a third option that would be sort of the lightest touch on it, so that you can look at what you can get for your money before we then go into the construction plan process. We did include the construction plan process in this proposal, but understand we would pause after that scoping study to look at the 3 alternatives that we're going to give you. And there'll be distinct alternatives with cost estimates for each. Then we go into construction documents for what that actually is, which then you can use to bid.
So the preliminary design and the final design we might never get there, depending upon what we decide after we pause the scoping. Is that correct?
So with
You'll do the
this,
scoping.
you would get it all. Yeah, we would do the scoping, we would pause, then you just pick which direction you're headed.
And then
then-
the preliminary designs and the final designs.
Exactly.
Result.
All the way through bid documents. That is included in this number.
So
But to understand that you're going to get, Roger had talked about option A and B, looking at the drainage. With this, we'll give you 3 options. We figure out what's the best use of the money, that is left to make the most improvements to the existing trail that we have, including some additional amenities. There's the opportunity that there may be some treating it more like a linear park. So we might be able to get some, is it adult exercise equipment, that there's an area that has that? Is it an area that's got shelter and drinking fountain? Looking at, again, how we might incorporate those amenities. So it's giving you those options before you then decide which path you're going down to then bid that project. Does that make sense? Okay.
Sounds like a good spot for some more benches.
I can use some benches at Overly Warman too. So.
The proposal's in the packet, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we have it here.
Oh, we tried to pull that out. That's okay. Didn't want to scare you too
Yeah,
much.
you already scared me, but that's okay.
So if we could potentially
just
pull
to
out.
find, you mentioned the bond. Remember, we have about $3.5 million for pathway improvements. And we have a grant of 1.8 million. It's a matching grant that involves the South Trailhead, the South Trail extension, and the North Trail extension. So those are our 2 major funding sources for the things we're talking about tonight.
So, and with the awarding of that grant, it just kind of opens up this opportunity, a couple of years earlier rather than what it would look like. So.
Now we can use the bond funds for the improvements. For that 8, yeah, it's all around Town Hall. It's out right out here, and then under Oak Street, it's like 8 feet, crumbly. It's pretty bad. So it'll be really obviously subpar in a year or less.
Again, back to that goal of getting the linear trail that's uniform as quickly as possible, not only for preventative maintenance, but for the best, customer service. And so we don't continually have construction projects like a highway.
Okay, so I think we can stop there on the on the widening project, design scope agreement, and we'll revisit that probably next month.
Yes.
Let's move on to old business, and I think these are all updates. Starkey Park SP3 stairway. Go.
The notice to proceed has been issued to HIS, so we are just waiting on that construction schedule for that project as well. I imagine that's going to correspond very tightly with the Overly Warm and carpentry projects. So I'll have more on that hopefully within the month.
We're also going to need the insurance, the builder's risk insurance on that one.
Okay.
Which is not Trish's responsibility because it's a different design firm. And maybe they've already thought of it.
All right.
Next old business is the Heritage Trail Park Phase 2, now underway. Coming soon.
Yep, Heritage Trail Phase 2 is looking good. They're starting to lay concrete and the perimeter for the additional playground. Have not heard of any delays. There's a nice pathway on 875. So the park is shaping up quickly. It's looking nice, and our goal of having it completed by August, the end of August, is still on track to my knowledge. Play equipment will be the finishing touches.
And the hoop house, that which is on our dime, when does that go?
That'll be an in-house project, and judging by the condition that I kind of investigated over the past couple of months, we might be looking at a new hoop house rather than utilizing the existing. I just don't want to put up something that's going to crumble. I rather, if we're going to invest in this gardening and new avenue for programming, we have a nice facility that'll fit that footprint and serve the community well. So we'll talk more about that in future budgets.
All right, and Lions Park Tennis Pickleball Court. Has that come in? And I think there's been a meeting recently with the pickleball community. We'd like a report on, a brief report.
So John, do you want to?
You want me? Okay.
If you want.
The Zionsville Pickleball Association was disappointed that there was only the opportunity to play, to put one pickleball court laid over the tennis courts that are there. One of the reasons is that the net in tennis is higher than in pickleball. And they felt that we should put overlay pickleball courts on either end of the tennis court. That way we could have a total of 4 pickleball courts there rather than 2. Our contractor told us that we didn't have enough setback with the fence. The pickleball people came out and measured and said, we do indeed have enough setback with the fence. So they are offering to repaint the lines, to have 4 pickleball courts laid over the 2 tennis courts that exist there now, plus provide nets for pickleball that will be on wheels that can be rolled off to the side when people are playing tennis and rolled in when people play pickleball. They would donate those nets and they would hold us harmless for any sort of vandalism or anything that occurs with the nets. We wouldn't be responsible for replacing or repairing them should that happen. They said that their attorney was out of town until this week. I don't know if you talked to him today, but last I saw, he was going to be coming back on Wednesday.
Yep.
And there would be further discussion. So it seems like a good solution. It's just a matter of buttoning it up and coming up with a simple legal document that puts all this in writing. Oh, and signage. They would work with us on language for signage, explaining pickleball and where the nets go when you're not using them. And we would take control of the signs so they would be uniform with other signs in the park system. Did I get everything there?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, John. So with, proper communication through our efforts and education, we can see this being successful, and that becomes a part of the culture of Lions Park. Is when you're there for tennis, the pickleball nets are pushed to designated areas. And then when you're there for pickleball, they will return to the courts. So we're hoping we have a good system in place to make this successful. Next to the hybrid courts, there will still be the dedicated pickleball court soon. Within the coming days, that should be going in, weather dependent.
The tennis nets stay, those are permanent.
Those are permanent, yep.
Those never get.
So I have 2 questions, I think. One is, when you said with their attorney, is it the pickleball people have their own attorney? There's a
Yes.
Pickleball
Yep.
attorney? Okay, and then, I lost the other one.
While you're thinking about it, the pickleball people have a group that's very much supportive of pickleball.
Okay,
And one of them happens to be an attorney who does legal work on the side.
makes so much.
So it's not like it's
okay.
a, contracted position. I think he's doing it pro
Okay,
bono. And they also have a contractor that's in their group too, that's willing to repaint the lines on the court, erase what's there and paint them in a way that they're going to be happy with the result.
okay. And then I figured out my other question. It was, did we determine who was right about whether the setback was enough? Because you had somebody said it wasn't and somebody said that it was. Did we get like a third?
They claim that they
arbitrary-
went out there with their own tape measure and measured and that they're comfortable with there being enough room to put in 4 pickleball courts rather than
Why don't we
2.
ask the designer?
Depends on its regulation versus recreation. So recreation is fine, but regulation is a couple of short. So if you're doing a tournament there, which you would, it's 4 courts. But if you're doing a tournament, you couldn't do a tournament there because it doesn't have that. But again, I don't think we have a professional.
As of a week ago, the dedicated pickleball court had not yet been laid or striped. What's the status of that? And did the pickleball community have any comments prospectively about that court?
No, they're happy with that design since it is dedicated. And learning more about the sport, there are some advantages or disadvantages to utilizing a tennis net for pickleball. The pickleball net is much less wide, so there are some different shots and things you can do with a pickleball net as opposed to a tennis net. And then the height difference is the biggest thing. So this does seem like a fair compromise in that. And as far as the dedicated construction, I believe all of the previous asphalt has been removed from the court. So now it is identifying that time for the new foundation and asphalt to be laid.
Have they given us any? It's like, come on, this was supposed to be done last November.
Anytime now.
Anytime.
Yeah, it's supposed to be this week, but with rain. But I don't have a new date yet. I'm still working on that. I'm still pushing that.
Roger.
You're talking about new asphalt for the dedicated court. On the existing tennis courts, have those been all done and striped?
They've been resurfaced. There's one bubble we noticed, which will want to be addressed by the contractor, but otherwise they're looking fabulous. They're pretty
And
sharp.
now we're talking about letting a private organization come in and repaint our courts.
Yeah.
To the extent needed to make their changes. And
Correct.
are we absolutely sure that what they do is not going to cause any problem with what we've just paid to have done?
Their adjustments would be the removal of the lines we just did.
By painting over them?
Yep.
And then painting new lines? I mean, they certainly have to use the right product, right?
Correct.
And I think we should have a written agreement that, we gotta know exactly what they're gonna do and know that it's gonna be done right. And we should probably make sure that whoever's doing it is covered by insurance and things like that. And if they're gonna finish the job. I mean, I understand we're trying to work with the people that are gonna be using the courts, but I just don't wanna see something done that we're gonna regret, given that we've just gone through, a professional process of having this done.
Well, they say that they have a construction company that will be able to do this for them. It's not going to be a couple of guys out there with a paintbrush. It's going to be
That's what I
someone who
envisioned.
knows what they're
Remember, it
doing.
That's what you're telling me.
our maintenance crews striped basketball courts at Heritage Trail and these same courts before they were resurfaced last year.
Yep.
So remember that we were our maintenance guys, one of whom's wife is a big pickleballer.
Yep.
Was doing lining last year.
So the lines that they're painting over are those tennis lines and does it?
No, they're a blue line specifically for pickleball use on the tennis courts, utilizing the tennis net. So
Okay.
this new system
I have it on
Shifts it
my
over
computer
so
if
that
anybody
they
wants
have
to see
their
it.
own-
It's like
Yeah.
different colors.
Okay.
All right, any more other questions about pickleball? Golf course pathways.
All right, one other screen to share. Kind of in the finalizing of this. So earlier this year, we met with Public Works and had an initial study to kind of understand how we could improve the drainage out at the golf course. It's no surprise that within a floodplain, we experience drainage issues substantially longer than would be desired with the mixture of clay and then also the low elevation. So we're working on that solution to fold into this. You might recall earlier this year, we did fold in the planning of the cart path improvements into the North Rail Trail expansion. So this is kind of what that layout would look like. Tricia and I met on site today and revised this a little further and addressed some of the concerns with the steep hills that are currently gravel and finding a path forward to change those. So we're hoping within the next month, we'll kind of have those numbers firmed up of what that project would look like for improving some of the existing holes and things that have been created throughout the course, and then also laying some new asphalt and resurfacing in other areas. So there'll be more on that, but like we preluded earlier, the golf course is experiencing never before numbers. We're having a fantastic turnout, and it doesn't seem to be a trend. It seems that COVID might have spiked and sparked this movement of getting outdoors and being safe and distanced, but our customer service and the overall enjoyment of the game is bringing people back. And people are enjoying the 9 course as opposed to a full 18. You can do it in a couple hours rather than your whole day. And we hear positive feedback every time I talk to someone at the course. So it's a very appreciated amenity, and these improvements are long overdue. And we want to really take a look at that and see what that investment looks like. And for reference, those black lines are where the improvements would be. And for the most part, we would not touch the existing pathways that are outside of that.
So and this would be the permanent, I mean, this would do it. This would make the golf course manager what he thinks is appropriate for our municipal course.
Yeah, and speaking with him, to pave the entire thing is kind of the cherry on top for the experience. So to get our existing paths up to par with the other pathways on the site and have that more uniform experience is going to be more enjoyable for everyone. Tricia and I were in a cart today, and it was a little bumpy in more than one place. So to improve that experience and then also take better care of our asset.
Enjoyed coming down from the 9th hole tee box. Was it wet? Was it raining? Oh, you went up.
We went up. Yep.
That's easy.
And also speaking with Mike, he has a great idea for shifting the course next year along with these improvements. So that would change the flow of the game. So your first putt currently is close to the road, which has its own mental factor about not damaging any cars. So the new layout would kind of let you warm up to that as I believe it's hole 4 or 5. So it gets you used to the game. This new layout would also make you stop by the concession stand in the middle of your game. So might be a better experience for all. And ending the game, it would be in a space where after we have our events and our penny putters and other groups, they naturally congregate in that area. So ending the game with them at that congressional area is just going to provide a little bit better experience for everyone involved in those groups.
See that.
So that.
Any questions on the golf course pathway project? So great. So did you just do this map between this afternoon or what that you just put up? I mean, because you were out there today.
This is dated. There are some changes. For example, if you notice in the bottom of the screen, that complete loop, the golf course has actually abandoned one of those and taken out the stairs. So some revisions throughout. So we'll have a better idea of number and the project design next month.
Okay.
Yeah, right now it is included in the set, the 90%. So we'll make those revisions and decide if it comes out as a separate bid or stays in.
Did you have to remind yourself all night to say, so the sidewalks were on par?
In a previous life, I was a stand-up comedian, so
I just wondered if you had it written down.
in my notes.
That's right. Don't forget to.
All right. Yeah, are there any other board-related items? If not, we'll move on to claims. Claims have been submitted in your packets. Are there any questions about the submitted claims? If not, is there a motion to approve claims as submitted?
I move that we approve the claims as submitted.
Second.
Second was from John Wollenberg. First was from John Stair. Aaron?
I was the second.
You were the second, Aaron. Bidwell is the second. John Stair makes the motion. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The motion to approve claims as submitted unanimously carries. Is there a motion to adjourn till our next regular monthly meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Sarah Moore makes the motion. Second,
Second.
yes. Jill Pack wins the race to second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. We unanimously carry it. And an hour and 52 minutes. Oh, that's far. That's kind of far.